All right, I'm recording.
Okay, let me go back.
Yep, it shows recording in the corner.
Yes.
So you're
Yeah,
recording.
so we'll start right now then. How's everybody doing? We'll get started.
Doing well.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Doing well. All right, so tonight we have Mr. JDew on there from South Carolina, and we have Mr. Jerry Russell from the Richmond, Virginia, Powhatan area. How y'all guys doing tonight?
I'm well. Thank you
Doing
for
well.
having me, my man.
Doing
Thank you,
well.
Ernest.
So the topic that I want to talk about tonight is resurrecting the Black community. So, and if you go by, look at some of the historical stuff, you know, we had places like the Black Wall Street, we had the area in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that was a thriving community. We had Rosewood, where some stuff was going on down there. You know, different areas in New York. We had, you know, there was some Black people with some, you know, some pretty prominent areas, you know, until the Jim Crow law and a lot of things happened after the Civil War, coming back from the war, people getting a little beside themselves, I want to put it like that, beside themselves, and they go in and they was burning houses and stuff down. And Mr. Drew and I, we shared a little bit of information about the Orangeburg, and I was going to talk a little bit about Elaine, Tennessee, about that little incident later on in the show. But right now, what I want to do is just take a few minutes for Mr. Russell. I'll let you introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay. My name is Jerry Russell. Not originally from the Richmond area, more of the Clover, Virginia area, but I have a strong background in technology and in theology as well. So I do a lot of music stuff, digital editing, audio, visual type stuff, and all about education and growth and the embedment of individuals.
Okay. Some good stuff right there. So, Mr.
Thank
Drew,
you, sir.
let us hear.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So a little bit about myself. Married, father of 3, live in Greenville, South Carolina. Most people in my community of the northwest corner of this state would recognize me in person as being the man from the minor league baseball team. We have a Red Sox minor league team in this area, or from Clemson University basketball as the hype man, the guy on the field, giving away all the gifts and the toys and you know,
Okay.
complaining that I'm not giving them a t-shirt. So most people knows me as that type of entertainer in my community, where I've done that for, I've been involved with those things for over a decade or so. And then the other thing that I do specifically in my entrepreneurial life is a performer and entertainment experience, a one-man Black history show. It's called One Voice. And I play several different characters from then till now in Black American history, and we hear them and their words specifically from Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King, Barack Obama, Muhammad Ali, and James Weldon Johnson. So that experience, One Voice show, has been on stage for about 10 years. About 50,000 plus people have seen that experience.
Wow.
That's good. That's awesome.
So one of the things I want to ask y'all guys, and y'all can decide who wanted to address it first, is what's the 2 things that you think that's plaguing the Black community right now?
Well, there's so many things. So I'm going to let my man Jerry take this one.
Can you hear me? It's like the sound went out. But you can hear me? Okay. I think 2 of the main things is a lack of unity and a lack of communication. And I think it's a lot of other things, but I think with those, the reason I say a lack of communication, because I know and I've seen you can have a bunch of guys that are Black in a group or in an area, and a lot of them have a tendency to push away from each other versus to pull toward each other, unless they come from an area where they're used to growing up with, hey, let me interact with this other brother, even though I may not know where he's from or his background. And I think that's vital once you begin to converse with other people and talk about the different things and the different things that you're going through, you'll see the actual commonalities. And then the question comes up, with the commonalities, what commonalities do we have, and what changes do we need to make? Because I'm sure we may have different backgrounds and experiences, but there are a lot of commonalities that we all have. So how do we make things better? Because I feel like having those conversations and talking about those things will open up the like doors of communication so that we can say, hey, now that we've got this here, I didn't realize that he can do this, or he can do this, or this person can do this. Now we can sit down and think of something that we want to do. I mean, it's just say, for instance, if we have a community that we decide that we want to build, you might be a doctor, he might be a lawyer, one might have a store, like one might have like business concepts, one might be a carpenter, and be able to put these resources together to form something bigger. And I think, honestly, I always see a lot of times like that, and follow through with something. There's always a lot of bright ideas and good ideas, but a lot of times there's no follow through. So I feel like the follow through and being able to communicate in that respect go hand in hand. It's like we talk about things that we want. We want this, or want this, or want to make this happen. Then a lot of people have wonderful ideas, but when you check a year or 2 or 3 later, it's kind of dwindled away because people haven't focused their energy collectively together to get a final product.
Okay. So
your mic was muted
Yeah,
when
I
you were
think you
talking.
muted there. You muted.
Yeah.
Oh, I did?
Yeah. Now you're back.
Okay. All right, Mr. Drew, what's your main 2 things that you think is plaguing the Black community?
Well, like I said before, I cut out a second ago. Many things. Now I think the Black community is very. There's a lot of potential, a lot of strong things, and I think that we won't solve all the problems right here in this conversation. However,
Nope.
I do believe that and I agree with what Jerry said as well. Very much so. But I want to add a different nuance, because 100% the value of your experience, the value of your effectiveness is the value of your communication. One of the main things he brought up. And the better you communicate with yourself, with your peers, and with other people is going to increase the effectiveness of your life. Big deal. So you want to be able to be clear and communicate. And then, of course, his next piece was executing, right? We have ideas, we have talents and skills, but how do we put them together? So I'm going to go a little bit of different route while agreeing with him. And I will say a lack of understanding or education in certain areas. And I will also say a breakdown of the family. Okay, so I'm going to get a little bit different, a little bit philosophical, and potentially moral, ethical, spiritual. I'll take it a little bit that direction just to heighten the conversation. So first off, we'll talk about a lack of understanding or education. You mentioned, as we opened up, a historical viewpoint of some of the Black communities that were thriving in the 20th century, early 20th century mostly, with Black Wall Street or Tulsa, Oklahoma, and things like that. And I think today, and some of those reasons are societal and some of them are lack of personal effort, that folks who look like us don't realize that we have been thriving in communities previously, because they don't know, they don't research that anymore. Okay. True. And the reason that I think that it's, before it's societal, the reason that I think is a lack of personal effort and there's problems there is because the library is free in your town and the library is free in my town. Okay. So it don't cost nothing to go over there and grab yourself a library card, but you got to have a little bit of personal ambition to go do that. Over the course of the last thousands of years that humans have been writing books, and we've captured some of that information, very smart people have put down things in words that we can read, we can review, and we can get into their minds. And many of us are not doing that. We're watching empire instead of building our own empire. Okay. Right. And there are people who have previously done those things that we should be doing. Okay. And the second one, the nuance in there is also societal. So I was born 36 years ago within a time where it's illegal in business and illegal in school to be separate. It's illegal to discriminate. However, my grandmother was not born in that era. So my grandmother, like probably yours as well, never went to school with people who didn't look like her. She lived in Louisiana, a southern area community. So she was not educated. She was educated on some topics different than I was, because I lived in integrated communities, integrated schools. So when the powers that be, who influenced the textbooks and the teachers and the hires, talked to me throughout my schooling, my actual schooling, not my education, just my schooling,
Right.
they
Right.
didn't talk about certain things that perhaps my grandmother knew about. But the people who talked to me told me these things 6-7 hours a day. They didn't bring those things up. One, because they didn't know themselves, and two, because the narrative had shifted by that time. So there was things I didn't know. So let me now move over to the breakdown of the family on a personal level as well as a societal level. We all know that the Black community is missing out on historic family values, or two-parent families, men, leading households, and things like that. And like I said, moral, ethical, potential religious or spiritual ideas that I'd bring in. So I think that is lacking. On a societal level, we've all seen how things were separated for Black people, how people who had the control, political power, economic power, and things like that, separated families, dismissed families, said that people of African descent they're not even interested in families. Look, and things like that, right? And that's historical. So it's been like that for centuries in this country. And then secondly is now, folks got to get it together and take care of their own families. They really do. They need to understand that you can build wealth, you can build knowledge, you can pass on inheritance and information if you're teaching it to your families. If you're sitting down with your folks, your own community, and you're passing this knowledge to them. So you've got to have some knowledge. You got to build it yourself, but then you can pass it on to you. And if not, we're all starting over from zero. Several of our ancestors 100 years ago, 200 years ago, they had nothing to give, nothing to pass to their family members. When they died, they started from zero again, started from zero again, started from zero again. We don't have to do that anymore. So it's a high time we stop doing that. We don't have to start from zero every new generation. There are things, knowledge, information, resources I should be passing on to my family and friends and community, and I got to do that.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask the question, Jerry. In I guess in your daily walk, for instance, do you think it's more of is it easier now at your age to talk to other Black guys, or was it easier in your parents' days?
I'm gonna have to answer that in two different levels. I feel like being easier to communicate is usually based upon the person to me, and is also based upon the others willing. So me being a talker, I've always been a talker. I have, even within my friend group when I was younger, I've always been the voice of reason. Like, hey, let's look at the big picture. Let's look at this. So that's my makeup. And even some of those guys that I'm still friends with today thank me for some of the things I told them when we were younger, because I was raised like that. And to bring back to Dew, Mr. Dew, what he was saying, when I was raised with a mother and a father. I was raised with a father that showed me the value of communication and the value of having friends and the value of trying to help other people and let other people help you. So now that I'm older, it's certain select individuals that I see desire to help or want information. And those are the ones that I try to assist and I try to help. I feel like to a certain degree, if you say that you want knowledge, if you say that you want to be conscious of things, my job is not to grab all the information and bring it to you. My job is to facilitate and show you how to get the information and what information is valuable, and to share. Because I've been in groups with different guys and they told me stuff that I didn't know. And they've told me, say, okay, let me check into this, let me research this, or vice versa. So I just feel like there's a certain degree within us that we have to look at the value of a higher consciousness, we have to reprogram how we process. We have to reprogram how we think. We have to reprogram how we interact, because most of the people, males, black males that I talk to, a lot of them, when you tell them certain things, they don't believe it because they've been conditioned a certain way. And it's like my thing is, I tell them, hey, like they will ask me, well, how can you do this? How can you do that? How can you go here? How can you go there and feel comfortable or speak this, or how do you know this? And I tell them it's reprogramming. Say you have conditioned yourself to keep your mind at where society dictates you to be, instead of you saying, hey, this is what I want to achieve and this is what I want to do. And I'm going to look at this thing and reverse engineer this thing and make this happen. You know, and I feel that's the part that when you try to communicate, and I've had these conversations with my dad, that as he grew up, he tried to communicate with some of his friends, and some of them got it, some of them did not want to get it. You know, and it's like, hey, he said, my primary objective is to make sure that my family is straight, mentally, physically, and spiritually, and try to assist others in respect to that, those that want it. So it's difficult in one respect to communicate, but in another, it's not. It's easy to have the conversation per se, but it's difficult to get the person to really want to grasp what you're saying and let them know that you have other options, you have better options. You can let them know, but they have to recognize it. They have to realize it themselves, and sometimes that's the difficult part.
Right. So hey, Drew, as an educator, how do you break that barrier of being, I'm gonna put it, how do you make a person bring down their walls of defense and be receptive of knowledge as an educator?
I think that one way to do it, or the way that I tried to do it as an educator entertainer, that's what my show is all about. It's historically accurate. I'm actually doing the words of these figures. So we come up to the stage and the curtain opens and you hear the first chapter of Frederick Douglass's first autobiography. I become that character. I don't give you commentary. I don't tell you about him. I just say his words exactly. It's all up here. So it took a while to get up there. And I do that for people for a long time. And my approach is to present the example and allow people to choose what they believe. So I'm in contextual conversations like this all the time when I'm talking maybe about my show or about Martin Luther King Jr., about Barack Obama, whoever it is. And I'll say often, I'm not trying to convince you either way, good, bad, right, wrong. But if we listen, we have an opportunity with new information to give a new idea, to have a new choice. And I think that's a lot of what Jerry said as well, is I'm going to present the information and you get to decide. So when my job is to take you to church, not to get you saved. My job is to bring a horse to water. They can decide whether or not to drink. So in that regard, so we leave it open. We leave the option open for people to choose a path that may not be good for them, and leave them an opportunity to choose a path where they don't change and they don't see it. But my job is, I hope and pray they choose right and they choose better and they choose good. But my job is to be an example of what's possible. And if it's possible for me, or it's possible for James Weldon Johnson, or it's possible for W.E.B. Du Bois, or it's possible for Booker T. Washington, then it's probably possible for you. And I just leave the option open.
Yes. Oh, I understand what you're saying completely. I do a lot of street talk with a lot of the young guys back in Philly and around the Richmond area, and I noticed that if you I want to say have a pleasant spirit or a pleasant heart or a heart of compassion, they're more apt to talk to you if you're not coming to them with demands and trying to point fingers and tell them this, tell them that, tell them this, but more to listen to their story in a sense. They're more willing to share information with you. How do you feel about that?
I would very much agree. It's very interesting that I tend to, so, and you know, there's a lot of, because of how people live and where people live, I end up doing a lot of school shows over the last 10 years, all over the place. But, you know, you see neighborhoods and neighborhood schools and communities with, often it's either predominantly white or predominantly black, right? And there's a lot of mixture of other people, but I'm generalizing for the sake of our conversation. And I've noticed this, it's very interesting, is that a lot of times folks who look like me, when I go to their schools and I present the information, there's a much more apathetic response to what's happening than there is in a predominantly white organization. And I haven't quite put my finger on how to verbalize what I see or how I feel about that or what to do about it. But it's very interesting because I agree with you. There's a lot of folks who don't see the opportunity for them, or they don't get it. Like Jerry said, they just don't see it. And for me, I think similar to exactly what he said, that's why I'm agreeing with everything so far. We got to get something we don't agree on, but so far it's, you see, just like he said, you got to see it in your mind first. The reason that I have a one-man show and I've been all over the country to be able to perform it in lots of different venues and made money as an entrepreneur, as a business person, is because I wanted it first. It was in my mind. Like, I can't put that inside someone else. So if you want to be a baker, if you want to be a carpenter, if you want to be a politician, it's great. But so those things are not in my mind, but I just present that what's possible. And I also go after what I want to do. And I think we do have to get back to, you know, some people don't know what they want. There's too many options, to be honest. We live in, and every time that you could focus on something for a long enough period of time to be successful and work on it, you end up on Netflix or playing Call of Duty for 3 straight days. So that's not going to help you.
Right.
So Jerry, out of all three of us have a biblical background. Yes. And what's interesting, both of y'all agreed that says it's in our mind. And you know, the first thing I thought about, the mind of God when he was creating the world.
Right.
You know what I mean? And how he spoke these things into existence. So if it worked for him, it worked for him, didn't it? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I don't want to go too far out with this, but one of the things that I look at is the creation process. If God creates us in his image, ex nihilo, out of nothing, then when he creates, he speaks into existence certain things. So because we're physical and in the same process still spiritual, that spiritual DNA is on us to be able to have the ability to do the same things, to have the process. So I don't force that on people. When I have conversations with people, just like y'all were saying, I give them another option. And I'm like, hey, brother, this worked for me. You can look at my life and tell that it worked for me. So I'm saying, hey, if you've tried this, and that failed, and then you look at the point of it's something else that I can try, that I can draw from. It's different things that I've, done, because I've mentioned some of the stuff that I do, but I've also done poetry, done live poetry. I've written a book, and I had guys ask me like, wow, you wrote a book. And they were like, well, how did you do it? And I told them, I said, the first thing I had to do is have an idea. Before I did anything, that's what I had to do, and had to have some place that I wanted to go. I said it took time. Then I took them through the other processes as far as marketing, as far as getting it out there, as far as getting it edited and all that different stuff. I said, but just because something looks difficult or looks hard, everything looks difficult and hard until you do it the first time. Then once you do it, you're like, yeah, it may be difficult, but I know the mistakes that I made. I know the things that I messed up on. So I try to tell people, you have to conceptualize first, and you have to desire as much as you want to do. Because just like one of the things that we all spoke about, is, and like just like Brother Dew was saying, he was like, hey, it's so many different things that you can do, with so many different things that's going on. And if you get caught up in doing something, you can play Call of Duty all day, or you can do this or do that. And the thing is, hey, instead of me focusing on other things, why don't I try to focus on something that will possibly make me better? And why don't I stick with that? And I give people the option, and I ask them the questions. What are you good at? What is it that you're really good at? And I said, be honest with yourself. Like, don't, just because your like mama tell you that you can sing, don't mean you can sing. You know, just be honest with yourself. Like,
Yeah.
what am I really, really good at? You know, what am I good at? Am I good at talking to people? Am I good with my hands? What am I good with? And then break down certain possible things that you feel comfortable with that you can do with that. You know, so I feel like we are all in that place that we try to stimulate thought and build hope in the minds of other brothers to say, hey, you can do these things, you know. And just like what you were bringing up within school, how I grew up in school, it took me after school to realize that so many black folks invented so many things. Because in school, in normal school, high school, whatever, that was never taught. That was
Right.
never taught at all. And then once I get older, I'm like, man, it's a plethora of black people that invented stuff that we use every day. Stoplight, refrigerator, all these different things that we use, but they're not given credit for it. So the thing is, I try to give examples like, hey, you have options. If these people had these limited options at that time, and their names are out there, and they became famous in this day and time, in the century that we live in, with the opportunity, you have better options than they had.
I agree. And Drew, like he was saying, what Jared said, I agree, man. It's just phenomenal how I agree, and y'all bringing out these points and stuff that I think about. It's like when it's saying diverse, I think the scripture say in diverse times, you know, and like these people that he's talking about that invented all these things, they was in some diverse times. Jim Crow
Very.
law, you know, all the different things, segregation, slavery, coming out of slavery, and sharecroppers, and all these people was not in the same, I'm gonna say, the same liberties that we have today.
Right.
It seems to me that we creating less, we are not as productive as those people in those conditions.
In some ways, I have to agree with that. And in some ways,
Yes.
maybe I'll give some new challenges and say where we may not be. So there are, as eras change, we move from an agrarian society to an industrial society to now an information society, right? We're an information society now. The opportunities are always there for the people who are willing to go be resourceful enough to go get the job done. And that's why we see people from back in the day, from meager means to George Washington Carver, or, you know, Eli Whitney's cotton gin, whatever those are, the opportunity was still there, even though the resources were low for black folks. Resources can still be low comparatively to many of the dominant culture, the majority, right? White people. Dominant culture is what I'm trying to use over the
Right.
course of 2020,
Right.
because it's not
Right.
just in some ways, it's not just color anymore, but it is culture. And culture can be
Right.
mindset. Culture can be area, because the laws have changed, right? The laws have changed. Lots of programming has changed. There has been justice in many areas. I'm not saying everything is right, you know, and everything is finished. I'm just saying the opportunity is there and the doors are open. So there's a complete difference between not being able to go to the library 60 years ago because they wouldn't let you in, and choosing now, 60 years later, to not go read, right? I use the
Right.
library as a metaphor because the information age, you can get this stuff right here on your phone. I know you have a phone. I know you got a screen in your house. I know you could have them read it to you in the car, right? There's lots of different ways. We got headphones, we got earphones. So that I just use that as a metaphor. So the opportunity is now open, and people aren't taking the opportunity that should be, right? There are some people, once again, who may not desire to change the world. but they can change their own economy, own family, and own communities by getting involved and working hard and finding whatever area they want to influence. And so I think we should be doing more. I've heard, maybe from one of the Jim Rohn, who's one of the business gurus of the 20th century that many of us have heard about or heard a recording. He said some very interesting things about a human is the only species that doesn't always live up to its potential. And there are always many other things, and no matter what, they always are living their potential. A dog lives his best life. A tree grows as tall as it can. It produces all as it can, but a human has a choice. And many times people choose to not reach for the stars. They have a choice to not live to their full potential. So there's much more that can be done, even for myself. It's great to have a conversation like this that sparks an iron sharpening iron, hopefully for me to go, man, let me get my act together, because now I know I've said these things, I put it out there, and now let's go work and back up what we've spoken into existence, even in our own individual lives. So we lost Ernest. Hopefully he's coming back here, but Jerry.
Yeah, hopefully he's coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I love what you're saying, and I feel the same way, because my thing is to maximize my potential as a person and to keep other people conscious of maximizing their own potential. So that's why me and my peer group of friends, we support each other. We push each other and try to say, hey, man, what are you trying to do? What's going on? What is it that you want to do? So that they can constantly keep in their mind, like, yo, these guys are focused on the things that I'm concerned about. They're not just focused on partying or doing this or doing that.
Right.
They're focused on me being better, like focused on, like, I've got friends that I'm like, hey, so how's your diet going? Because the older you get, the healthier you need to make sure that you are. You can't play around and do the things that you used to do when you're younger. So you got to be mindful of those things so that you can live a healthy, comfortable life. And then I also try to lead by example by taking care of myself. I'm 46 years old. A lot of people thinking I'm 30-something, but I'm not. I'm 40-something, but I take care of myself. I try to eat right. I drink a lot of water to better yourself on different levels. Educational, emotional, mental. One of the things that I learned from one of my advisors when I was working at Johns Hopkins is we need to learn how to sit in silence. It's easy to run around and do this and go here and go there. But we're saying a lot of times when you sit in silence, you begin to look at the things that you lack or the things that you're not good at. And just be honest with yourself. Sit in silence, look at them, think about them, and try to figure out a way to make yourself better. And I think what happens, a lot of people don't want to look at themselves because that requires them to do more work.
Right. And sometimes, the honesty and transparency of the mirror. If you look in the mirror, you're gonna see what's there. So I choose not to, or I compare myself to other people. As long as I'm doing something just beyond the next guy, or I fit in with my group. So it's comparison both ways. I might be a little bit better, just a little bit worse than the next guy, or I just fit in with the group. Maybe that allows me leeway not to reach my full potential. So we lost the host there for a second. So I've got a question for you, I guess. So maybe I can answer. We'll just kind of close it out this way. So moving forward, what are some of the things that we can expect from you? What are the initiatives you're working on? How can we follow up with you and in your community and what you're doing?
Okay. One of the things that I've been doing is I've been working on writing. I mean, I have a background in theology and I have a master's in ethics. I have a master's in counseling, and I have a master's in divinity. And now I'm at the point of pushing those efforts to do more things, because I've had people ask me more questions as far as personal thought processes, how you function, how you do certain things. So what I'm doing, because I understand technology, is to push those things out there, to write it, to get the information, to make it plain. Other thing that I'm working on and I'm researching is actually doing a podcast. And I want to talk about various things, and I don't want to have a podcast limited to certain things. I want to have it talking about social issues, social injustice, health issues, personal issues, relationship issues. And I feel like giving the information that I have, or like either some of the times I've talked to certain people in the past about doing workshops, and I've done certain workshops for people. I'm at a point now in my life that I felt this year has been a year that's been difficult, but it's been a revelation style year in respect to me and to other people that I've talked to. So to me, it's more of, this is an opportunity, realizing and recognizing that the world and society is not going to go back to the way it used to be. It's not going to happen. That's done.
Right.
We're at a different level. We're at a different limit. So you have to adapt. And this is the type of time where you have to use your resources, your ability, and who you are, for not just the betterment of yourself, but for the betterment of others around you. Like if you know better, or if you know some things, now is the time to say those things that you know that could possibly help somebody else, versus keeping them to yourself. And I feel like that's important, like how to do certain things, how to handle certain things, how to react to certain things. I've got friends that focus on saving money, on Bitcoin, on this and that, and we're all talking about doing different podcasts and putting different information out, because I feel like in this society, information is power. And if you build it and you're consistent with something, people will come. So I look at it as, in the 90s, when you were doing things, you had a street team. You had people that hit the streets. They hit the streets. Now people don't really hit the streets because there's no purpose to hit the streets, because everybody's got a phone. If you got a phone, if you got access to something, you can give people powerful information in a short period of time, and you can have it out there for them and have some type of receptacle where they can go to. So I have my own websites. I do media stuff. I do music production stuff. So I'm into a whole lot of things. So I want to be able to maintain my platform, but put more stuff out there to make people aware of certain things through, just like you were saying, like based upon your show. I think that's awesome. Like when I heard that, I'm like, wow, that's awesome. I think that's smart, that's knowledgeable, and that gives people information, and it inspires them, and it puts a ripple in their consciousness. And I think that's brilliant what you're doing. So my thing is, through the gifts and everything that I have, I'm trying to do the same thing, to put stuff out there. I actually wrote a book of poetry dealing with real life stuff, real life situations that spans like probably 39 years. And when I put it out, it started throwing at people that I went to school with, and everything was, man, this is awesome. Like, this is awesome. Like, I'm using poetry to talk about different things. So I want to try to make my life, me being who I am, as a process by which people can become aware. Because to me, it's not just an act of, well, I'm going to do something. I want to do things, but I want who I am to represent the things that I do. So in a sense, practice what you preach.
Yes, sir. Well, I love it. Thank you, Jerry, for all that, man. We look forward to seeing some of their stuff. So why don't I answer the same question, unless you had something for me, man? Anything you want to know specifically or clarification on something I said?
Actually, listening to what you said, I really, really love what you said. And I see how what we've been saying meshes.
Right.
It's a nice mesh. It's kind of like a multi-dimensional type of thing. And I feel like this could be the start of something, bigger by having brothers that speak well, educated, know how to converse, not conversate, but converse and talk to other people and let other black men see, hey, there are brothers that can sit down and have sensible conversations and can hash certain things out and can put things together. I mean, and I think that's a good thing. So I love everything that you said. Question wise, I would kind of ask you the same question. What is it that you feel or see that you can do or we can do to raise the bar?
So appreciate that. Yeah, exactly what I was saying earlier is first off, be an example. Be an example and do it and practice it in your own life. Don't just converse or conversate about it, but be about it. And that's what I've been trying to do in an
Right.
entrepreneurial world. So as I mentioned, I have a one-man show, onevoiceshow.com. And what I'm doing is I'm taking people backward to move them forward. So backward, what I mean by that is we go into the historical approaches to learn from people who've given it and written it down and taken pictures and videos
Smart.
of it for us. So I have seen a lot of people be able to make new decisions about how they treat themselves and each other moving forward because they've thought about something that happened in the past. And so I love
I
that
like that.
aspect of my show. It was not the original intent of my show. I literally went at it as a performer and as an opportunity to make money, but I'm able to change the conversation very well because the information, of course, from these peoples and heroes and their struggle and their strategies have lasted the test of time. So I use these
Yes.
Americans as a part of my show and all those things, as well as the real life people who are the video vignettes in my show. So moving forward, one thing that I'm very focused on right now is a entrepreneurial world is to get the job done personally and take others with me. And
Gotcha.
then I think that I'm going to be able to give back and do more as I expand my communication network. As if I'm able to talk to more people and give more people the information and go do more shows, and 2020 has thrown it at us, right? So this is the first
Right.
year where there's now a virtual option for my show. And so
There you
people
go.
and corporate groups and whoever are now starting to book that. I'm working on marketing materials. So I think that the opportunity is richer because of the spatial distance we're all giving ourselves and probably will for at least the short term, a couple years. Who knows how long this is or
Yeah.
how it's going to play out.
Yeah.
And then secondly, of
Yeah.
course, the world is as of June this year, the world became a lot more ripe for talking through some of these cultural bridges and
Yes.
gaps. So,
Yes.
with unfortunate events that have happened around our state, country, world, the world is ready to talk about it in a new way. They're ready to talk about it on
Right.
corporate levels. They're ready to introduce
Right.
some of these issues to children. There's all those things. So
Right.
I'm trying to do all that. And I think that's only going to raise the bar because I think we need to be more industrious as a people group. We need to, like you started this whole thing in. So I think it rounds the circles up real well is, there's resources between all of us. There's dreams and there's skills between all of us. We need to use them better, collaborate better,
Yes.
so we can build a better product. And if that product is a community, if that product is a one person, if that product is a family unit, if that product is a political system, but we can do it, of course. And we didn't come this far. We didn't come all this way to get dropped off now. So
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. I agree.
So, man, I appreciate you. So, hey, why don't we close this out?
Yes.
With some contact information. Tell us where we can find your stuff. I'll do the same, and then we'll close it out, and we'll let the people see it.
Okay. You can get information from me at www.jerryrusselljr.com. There's JERRYRUSSELL JR.com.
Very good. Okay, and me, One
You get
Voice
information
Show.
from me like that. Uh-huh.
Okay. OneVoiceShow.com is where I have my information that pertains to this message here. Me as a host and speaker is itsjdew.com. Most people call me JDew, so itsjdew.com or onevoiceshow.com. So Jerry Russell Jr., I appreciate you jumping on here, man. I decided to take control and kind of keep it going. We missed out on Ernest. You know, we go hit him up. Everybody who's getting this, we're Ernest boys here, but you know, technical difficulties is 2020 all over again.
Yes.
So, hey Jerry, I'm gonna make sure we connect, and I appreciate meeting you tonight and all these great words of wisdom, my friend. So be blessed.
Yeah, very nice meeting you as well and conversing with you, and you be blessed as well, brother. Nice meeting you.
All right.
Take care, JDew. Bye-bye.